Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're looking at labor economics. We're looking at this topic generally, the course labor economics as to what it involves. That is, we're going to define what labor economics is, then look at the areas that it covers, that is the scope, and then we'll go on to look at the characteristics and we'll also look at the role players, the decisions that they make. Okay. So essentially, this is what we're going to look at this moment. So let us delve into the lesson. Labor economics is the study of the workings and outcome of the market for labor. So you're going to look at how the market works, and then what are some of the things that emanate from the interactions of the various aspects of this particular market. Okay? So it is mainly concerned with the behavior of employers and employees in response to wages, prices, profits, and working conditions. So we're looking at two aspects of the labor market. We're looking at the employees and the employers. And from macroeconomics and microeconomics, I'm sure you are aware that a market is composed of two aspects. There's the demand side, and then there's the supply side. Okay? So even when it comes to labor economics, we still have those aspects. And at a basic level, we look at how these two aspects of the labor market interact. That is, in response to the wages, that is what the workers get at the end of the day. We're looking at the prices of goods and services. We're looking at the profits and the working conditions. So the way they respond to these factors and how they're influenced in terms of their labor relations is generally what labor economics is all about. I hope we're together on this one. Shall we proceed? So labor economics is the study of the relationship between wages and employment opportunities. It also looks at the interaction among wages, income, and the decision to work. Then it also studies the way wages, prices, and profits affect occupational choices. If you've been following, you can actually see that we've already talked about these variables when we're just introducing. That is from the definition of what labor economics is. Okay? So you're looking at how the wages are connected with employment opportunities. I'm sure most of the times when people look for employment, they look at what they're going to get at the end of the day. So the opportunity that presents itself entails that you also need to know something about the wage rate or what you're going to get at the end of the day. Okay? So it will study the interaction that is among wages, income, and the decision to work. You can see that the decision you make when it comes to work hinges on the wages or on the income that you're going to get at the end of the day. Of course, sometimes you may not have so much of a decision, especially if you're desperate for a job. It means that sometimes you just get whichever job comes around. But at the end of the day, you're still looking at the income that you're going to get. Then it also studies the way wages, prices, and profits affect occupational choices. So essentially, whatever decision you make, in as far as getting a job is concerned, it hinges on the issue of wages, on the prices, and also the profits, how these are going to affect the choice that you make. And we need to be aware that we're not just talking about the employee here, we're also talking about the employer. Even as they're employing, what are they looking at? They are also looking at the profits they're going to get. Are they going to sustain the workers that they're employing? They're looking at the price of the product they are selling. Are they profitable enough to sustain the jobs of the people they've employed? And even the business itself. So those are the aspects that you look at. Okay. In addition to that, it also studies the incentives for and effects of educational and training investments, the effect of unions on wages, productivity, and turnover, the effect of social policies on wage and employment. Let's look at each of these itemized factors individually. So for instance, if we talk about education and training investments, the incentive and the effect of, okay? What we're looking at is, even as we talk about education and training investments, what's the incentive for somebody to be educated? What's the effect? What comes out of whatever field of endeavor that somebody has embarked on, or whatever field of study, should I say, somebody has embarked on? What are the effects? What is the result of whatever that person has studied or what they've measured in? Okay, so how are they going to benefit? So you study that under labor economics. Then you also look at unions. Of course, these are labor unions. What effect do they have on the wages? What effect do labor unions have on productivity and on turnover? We know wages are unions are very strong. Okay, they are very influential in as far as the regulation is concerned. So you have to study the unions as well under labor economics. Then you also look at social policies, like when it comes to wages and employment. Okay. Of course, all these are factors that need to be considered even as you are looking at the labor or the employment relation. So in labor economics, it's important that all these factors are actually studied. And among the factors that are covered under labor economics. Now, what is the labor market? In simple terms, the labor market is defined as a market for a factor of production. And in this connection, we are talking about labor as a factor of production. So the market for labor. And labor is understood to be a measure of work done by human beings. Okay? So we need to understand that when we talk about labor, we're not talking about people per se, but we're talking about their effort or their contribution towards production. Okay? So essentially, that is what we talk about. That is what should present itself to your mind when you hear the term labor. So the labor market explains the functioning and dynamics of the market for labor. The pattern of wages, employment, and income. Okay. So in labor economics, this is what we are looking at. The functioning and dynamics of the market for labor. That is what we focus on. For instance, you look at the pattern of wages. Generally, how is the level of the wages, employment, and income? So those are the factors that you consider under labor economics and under the labor market. Shall we continue? The labor market refers to the demand for labor. Okay? The demand for labor. by employers and the supply of labor, which is provided by potential employees. Okay, so like I alluded to when I was just introducing, I think I did mention that in economics, we know the economy is made up, or the market is made up of two components. There's the supply side and the demand side. So I think the labor market is just the same. The employees are the ones who provide the labor, so they are the supply side. The employers are the ones who demand, so they're on the demand side. And you need to understand that demand for labor is derived. So you do not demand labor just for its own sake. The reason why you demand labor is because you want each to contribute to production. So it's actually what is produced with that labor that's what counts most. So labor is just there to help you get what you need to get, to help you produce. So the reason you look for labor is because you want to produce. So ultimately, what will tell you that you need labor is the output, the production. Okay? So you're not looking for labor just for its sake, but you're looking for labor because you want to produce. So it's in this sense that we say that demand for labor is actually derived. It is derived from the products that are produced or from what you want to produce. The output is what will determine how much you need in terms of the units of labor. I hope that is clear enough. Shall we proceed? Now, even as we talk about the labor market, even as we talk about labor economics, we need to understand that there are certain key roles. Okay? Certain role players, so to say, okay, in this labor relation. Okay? We know when we talk about the labor market, there are certain players who are very important. We have the individuals. Of course, we are talking about the employees in this connection. Then we have those who employ, that is the firm or the organization. We also have the government. It also plays a part. Okay? So we're now going to look at the decisions that these different role players make. Individuals will make decisions with regard to when they are going to enter the labor market. It's up to the employee to decide that one. The prospective employee decides when they can enter the labor market. How much education, how much training do they need? Then the type and the extent of job search. Occupational industry. Which industry are they going to go in? Is it in the education industry? Is it in the manufacturing industry or whatever? Mining industry, okay? Extraction industry, okay? So all those decisions are made by them. The labor hours, household work. To accept, quit, or relocate. The wage rate, union or association. Whether they're going to join the union or the association. How much they're going to be paid, how many hours they're going to work. Of course, you realize that it's not all these factors over which individuals have decisions to make. They may not have control over some of these factors, but we need to understand that somehow they can, in a way, influence the decisions that are made with regard to these factors. So these are the first role players in the labor market. We also have decisions that have to be made by the firm, like in terms of the number of workers that they're going to get, how much they're going to pay them in terms of the wages, and the benefits that will accrue to those workers, the hours that they're going to work, how many workers they're going to lay off, should they subcontract or not, aspects to do with pension and retirement policies. So these are decisions that are purely made by the firm. Of course, there are also other third parties that are involved, like the government, okay, in some of these aspects through legislation. Now, what are some of the factors that influence a firm's decisions? The first factor is global competition. We look at aspects like free trade, industrial restructuring, deregulation, privatization. Okay? So how are these factors like at the global level? Okay? When we talk about free trade, of course, we even talk about things like free trade areas. Okay? We're talking about globalization. Okay? You know that sometimes when certain governments join certain economic unions or certain organizations, there are certain rules that are put in place, economic rules, so to say, for lack of a better word anyway. So you'll find that maybe the tariffs that they used to charge may not apply in certain instances, whereas in other instances, they may apply. Okay? So if there is a restructuring, like in the industry, if we talk about the regulation, or should there be regulation? Is it privatization or nationalization? So those are factors that are also considered. Okay. Then legislative environment, you're mostly looking at things like human rights. You're looking at minimum wage, overtime, maternity leave, workers' compensation. And then you also look at occupational health, safety, pensions, labor laws, collective bargaining. So those will come under legislation. And lastly, you also look at the changing workforce, age, gender, ethnic diversity. Okay, so these are factors that influence a firm's decisions. And then the government also does make decisions that are likely to affect, in fact, most of the time affect the firms. It will look at individual rights against employee competitiveness, public transport, training and education, insurance, compensation, pensions, and skills development. So those are the aspects that the government may look at. Now, what are the characteristics of the labor market? In the labor market, we have stakeholders. Stakeholders are those who are affected somehow by the employment relation. Like, for instance, when people are employed, who are affected, okay, somehow by the operation of a particular business. It could be labor, management, the government, all those are regarded as stakeholders. So you're going to have stakeholders in the labor market. Then you also have sociological factors as one of the characteristics. You have families, you've got community ties, you look at the role of women, you look at social norms. Okay? Then institutional, that's why you look at the unions, multinational corporations. There are also legislative constraints. There are laws that are enacted that are likely to affect the performance of a firm or a business generally. Okay? Things like the minimum wage, health and safety regulations, employment insurance, pensions, those are likely to affect the operation of a particular business. Then you also look at market imperfection. You know, there is perfect competition, there is also imperfect competition. So here you're looking at market uncertainties and risk. So these also form part of the characteristics of the labor markets. So there are markets that are perfect. There are also markets that are imperfect. That is what you need to take into account when you look at the structure of firms. Then lastly, you also look at complex wage rate implications. That is the return on investment on education. You look at training and mobility, union, power, productivity, standard of living. Okay. So these are wage rate implications, complex wage rate implications. Okay. So depending on what you're getting, somehow even your productivity will relate to that. The standard of living, how powerful your union is. So those somehow will influence what you're going to get in terms of the wages. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what marks the end of our lecture. I hope you've got something from this presentation. And should you have any questions, feel free to post it in the comment section, or you can post it on our WhatsApp group so that we can discuss. But I prepare myself, then we discuss the next time we meet. Bye. See you next time.